and welcome to In the Cool of the Day and today's segment of People Connecting People. I'm your host, Ruth Pegeron, and I have a special show for you today. My guest has a passion for helping seniors and the elderly let go of the past so they can move into their future by taking the stress out of their downsizing and moving decisions. She received her training from the National Association of Senior Move Managers and worked for 2 separate Northern Virginia senior move manager companies. She belongs to the Superior Options for Seniors Networking Group and is an ambassador for the Northern Virginian Senior Resource Network. In addition to helping seniors downsize and move, our guest is a hospice volunteer, enjoys gardening, baking, and reading. So please welcome founder and owner of Smooth Move Managers, Adele Logan-Galen. Welcome, Adele.
Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you so much for being here. It's a new year,
Yes.
2024, and so I'm excited to start this year off with no other person other than you. I really am, for People Connecting People.
Thank you.
So yes, so we're just going to jump right into it and get started, and just tell our audience a little bit about yourself, and just why you got started in senior move management.
Sure, Ruth.
Yes.
I grew up in New York and didn't move to the D.C. area until 1987. And while I lived here, my parents lived in New York still.
Oh.
And their first move was to California. So I helped them downsize so they wouldn't have to spend more money than they needed to move to California. Well, then in the next 20 years, they decided to move back to the East Coast. So I helped them move 3 separate times. And each time they were older, they had more issues physically and cognitively. But I found I really enjoyed it. And I thought, if I could enjoy helping my parents, I could enjoy helping anybody.
I wonder why.
Well,
parents are a tough customer, right?
Well, it's just interesting in noticing the little things, because ultimately it's not about the belongings. It's about making them feel comfortable in their new space. And yes, so that's how I started. I didn't even know the profession existed until I was talking to a friend, and she said, "Oh, you should look into senior move management." And I was like, "What's that?"
Right, like, what's that?
So I joined what's called NASM, National Association of Senior Move Management. I got my training, and then I decided, before I put out my own shingle, to first work for a large company and then a small company to see, A, if I really liked it, and B, what would I do the same and what would I do differently?
Yeah, because I'm sure it's very different working with your parents than someone else, and what you learned in working in those companies.
Exactly.
And what did you do prior to helping your parents move? What was your profession beforehand and the transition?
I was in public relations for 15 years, working for associations and 2 PR agencies. And then I took a break when I became a mom and had 2 kids. And then after like 10 to 12 years, I was like, I got to do something else. And that's when, it's the sandwich generation.
Right.
My parents really needed help. And they were not the type to go out and find help externally. And they didn't know what senior move management was. And my only sibling is in another country. So I said, I'd help them. I'd be honored to help them. And for the most part, it was very smooth. Some funny things happened along the way, but it was okay.
It was okay. I call those growing pains. And you never know how they propel you into the future. You just don't know.
Well, the funny story is when they finally moved into their single-family home in Cary, North Carolina, I helped them move in. But what I didn't realize is you need to know the morning routines of the clients.
Oh.
Like, are they coffee drinkers? Are they tea drinkers? Are all of these things in a box that is labeled? So we moved in, woke up the next day, and my mom is like, where's my coffee? I was like, I don't know. I was like, I'll go out and get some coffee.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, no, you won't.
No.
I'm not going to let you spend $4.50 for a cup of coffee. You know, children of the Depression.
Yes, that's right.
Well, after opening 3 boxes, we finally found it. And it was an important lesson that I followed today because I make sure I understand my clients' routines.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what do they do in the morning? Do they put on workout clothes, or do they, you know, like to loll about?
Mm-hmm.
So I can have those items ready for them.
Available. So
Yeah.
you prioritize
Right.
your move, if you will, with them, or your process with them based on their lifestyle.
Exactly.
That's a really nice approach. Really nice
it makes
approach.
sense.
Mhm.
Like, one of my clients loves to ride his electric bike, so I had to find a place for it, make sure it could charge.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And
you're
that
right.
was
Make sure it could charge. Yep.
important for him. So that's when sitting down with the client and getting to know them
Mm-hmm.
really is helpful.
Okay. Now, what about any clients that have children or other family members? Like, how do you incorporate them
Well,
into it?
sometimes it works well,
Okay.
and sometimes it
doesn't.
doesn't, depending on the relationship between the adult children and my clients.
Okay.
You know, I can work with anybody.
Mhm.
I've worked with this one client, and I email her daughter every time I go see her, and her daughter lives in California. So, you know, but they get along.
Right.
I had another client who was very happy that her adult son didn't want to be involved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's really a case-by-case issue.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that you are hired more, or not even hired, I should say, really, who's reaching out to you more for saying you need help? Like in your case, your parents needed help and they don't reach out.
Right.
So luckily they had a daughter such as you to help them. But in the case of just your customers, do you find that the family's reaching out to you more for this kind of assistance, or is the client themselves?
Both.
Oh, both. Okay.
I had a family member, a son, who I never met,
Mm-hmm.
but I met his move manager at a conference. He lives in North Carolina, so when his parents were moving, he asked his move manager, could she recommend someone, and she recommended me. Mostly it's either the clients or a real estate agent or a lawyer, but it varies.
It varies, just depending on that individual person's need and the professionals around them to solicit people to come and help them.
Also, I do get referrals from aging life care managers.
Okay.
If they're working with a family and the family has to move the parents,
Mm-hmm.
they'll call me.
They'll call you. Okay, good. So how do you make a plan that's customizable? I know you said lifestyle is one way. What's some other ways that you make a plan that's customizable to the person?
Well, a lot is driven by a timeline.
Okay,
You know,
timeline, that's important.
Are they selling their home?
Mm-hmm.
Do they need to sell their home before they move into a community for the money? So the timeline pushes the agenda. I prefer to have at least a month, but I've worked in 2 weeks. I would say also what drives it are doctor's appointments, because clients have doctor's appointments.
Yes.
So I'll try to schedule what I call my decluttering sessions around their appointments.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So first, you know, we'll look at a calendar. Okay, when do you want to move by? You know, do you need to let the senior community know? Sometimes it changes. My very first client, he was wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
He ended up having to have heart surgery. So I said,
Aw.
no problem. When you're ready to pick up, this process, give me a call. So you never really know.
So you never know. But lifestyle, timeline, those kind of things. Does weather ever play an impact? Weather, anything like that?
No.
Okay.
I would say the mental and physical health of the client,
yes.
their timeline. Also, do they want to sell items?
Okay.
Because if they think their furniture or knickknacks have value, I can put them in contact with either an online estate sale company or an auctioneer.
Oh.
That takes time, though. So I leave it up to them. I tell them it's the age-old, equation of time versus money.
Yes, time versus money.
And
yes.
if they want to make money, maybe they need to give themselves an extra week and a half.
To do that.
Yeah.
Now, do you ever get involved with storage, like storing items for them, or do you really try to truly downsize to the?
Yes.
To the.
No, I don't like storage units.
Okay.
I had a client. Oh my God, she was in D.C. and she moved to Roslyn, Virginia. She says, Adele, will you come with me to my storage unit? It's in Virginia. I'm like, sure. How long have you had it? 17 years.
Oh my goodness.
So I go to the storage unit expecting to see amazing items.
Yes,
that she
for
was
17 years.
No! At least in my mind, I'm like, she paid $25,000 for that storage unit.
Over the time, yes.
And I tell my clients, I'm like, you forget, it becomes automatic. They deduct it from your checking account.
Yeah, it does.
I have gone to storage units and gotten rid of stuff for my clients, but I plead with them, don't get a storage unit.
Right. The whole goal is to downsize into the space with things they need that fit their current lifestyle.
Well, some places, some senior communities offer storage.
Well, that's different, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's we're talking about going out and getting a storage unit just to put more items into.
No.
That's not on the checkbox.
No.
We try to avoid that.
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Okay, got it. How difficult, and when we come back, we're going to take a break shortly, but I want to ask you how difficult is purging and how difficult it is to help somebody do that. So be thinking about that because we're going to be going to a break, and I know that's probably going to be a loaded answer when you come back because we hear about Swedish desk cleaning. That's a big deal now, and people have a good hard time. Hoarders, the show, we see that, how people have a hard time. So I know that's probably very difficult. So we're going to go to a short break. It's time for a short break. We will return after these important messages.
He's the face of our future, tutoring and mentoring tomorrow's leaders. She's the face of hope, helping communities recover from devastating disasters. He's the face of independence, making sure that those who need assistance can remain in their own homes. These are the faces of experience, making a difference for generations. This is Senior Corps. Visit nationalservice.gov. This message brought to you by the Corporation for National and Community Service.
All right, welcome back. You are watching In the Cool of the Day in today's segment of People Connecting People with my special guest, Adele Logan-Galen, founder and owner of Smooth Move Managers. So prior to the break, we were discussing about purging. And I wanted you to spend a little bit of time in your profession. I'm sure you mentioned also mental, challenges that people may have, some physical, but mental. So can you tell me a little bit about, and our audience, how difficult is it to help people with the purging?
Purging. It really depends on the person.
Okay.
I had one woman who, when I went to her house, I couldn't even sit down because there was stuff everywhere. I had to say, excuse me, can I move these papers so I can sit? And I was like, what is wrong with this person? I found out that she had stage 4 breast cancer for 8 years.
Aww.
And she would start a project. She was an amazing quilter, embroiderer, sewer.
Yes.
Unbelievable what this woman could do. And she would start a project, but then she'd feel sick or have to go on chemo. So then she'd start another project.
Aww.
So I felt a bit chagrined myself.
Yeah, I was going to say, you probably were like, oh, no.
But she was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I think she knew her time was limited.
Mm-hmm.
And so I looked on this whole array of projects. I said, do you have a friend who likes to do what you do? She's like, yeah, but she moved to Ohio. No problem. Let me get some boxes. And would you like me to mail this stuff to Ohio for you?
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. I must have mailed 5 boxes to her friend in Ohio. So that's purging, but purging with the purpose,
Right.
She felt good that these projects were going to her friend.
Yes.
Now, in other circumstances, I can help someone clean up their space, but I tell them that unless they get some help, some therapy, their space is going to go back to the way it looks
Right.
6 months from now. I can help them, decide they don't need to collect every single plastic bag. They don't need, every magazine. But I'm not a social worker. I'm a declutterer. And so I can refer them. But if they want to hire me, I want them to realize they'll need to do another type of work as well.
Okay, that's good that you help them with that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I would never leave someone hanging.
Okay.
Other people, if they have like 10 items, 10 mugs, I'm like, can we select 4?
Right.
What are your 4 favorite?
Right.
Others, I make it a game. I bring chocolate kisses with me, and I'm like, you want this? Then you got to give up 3 of those.
Right. That's fun.
That
makes it engaging and
exactly.
fun. Yeah.
With other people, if they have a lot, I said, well, do you want to take some photos and make a scrapbook of your collection? I don't use the H word, hoarder.
Okay.
It has negative connotations.
It does.
And if they've been hoarding for a long time, they already feel bad.
Right.
So
So why make them feel worse?
Exactly.
They have to feel bad. Like, who feels good sitting around things that they're attached to?
Right.
So you don't come in and say, what? How did you get like this? You don't do that.
No.
You come in and say, how can I help?
How can I help?
Right.
And are you getting help, from a different
Type
profession?
of profession, right.
A lot depends if they are going to be moving to a smaller place, like if they've lived in a house for 40 years and they're moving to a 1-bedroom apartment, then the floor plan becomes my friend.
Right.
Because I'll say, oh, okay, show me on the floor plan where you're going to put all that stuff.
That's a great approach.
And then the floor plan is the bad one, not
Right.
me.
Yes. Well, I think too, because that's a great approach, because I think anybody that's moving into anything new, that's exciting.
Well, also, I'm a big believer in giving to charity, and I have a lot of charities I work with. So if they want, I can help pack up the stuff for a charity to come and pick it up. I've done that many times.
Do you find that people, that's a good point, do you find that people, when you give them that choice, that there are people out there that can use these items?
Oh, yeah.
Do you find that now the attachment is broken because they're like, wow, I can't help somebody? Or do they still feel like they're hanging on to it?
It breaks slowly. I'll say, okay, you have 2 sets of dishes. You're going to a place where they serve you 2 to 3 meals a day.
Oh, right. That's
You
a
know,
good point. Uh-huh.
Which set would you let someone else enjoy?
Ah, very nice approach.
You know,
Because if they are somewhere that's going to serve, do they need all these dishes? And that's your point. Like,
Right.
you won't even need them anymore.
not only that, but a lot of these places have small kitchens.
Yes,
What are you going
they
to do
have
with all
small-
this
yes,
stuff?
Yes, they do.
And I want to make sure that when they move and unpack, that it's a safe environment.
Right, right.
Because I anticipate, what if they're in a wheelchair in 10 years? They're
Right.
going to need the corridors clear to move around. So, I let them know my approach right up front.
Right, right.
Your safety is my primary concern. If you have all this stuff, it could be a safety hazard. You could trip.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Now, let me ask you, did any of your previous career help you with this career? Because you're such a forward thinker and you give so many different approaches. And I'm just playing back even when I've moved in the past. And I'm hanging on, and I'm hanging on, and I'm hanging on. And I do it all the time. I look at things, I put it in the Goodwill bag, I take it out. I put it in, I take it out.
Put it in the bag, put it in the trunk of your car.
And then that's where it's out the house. Then I don't
Out of
see
the
it.
house.
So I can imagine going from like a 3-bedroom home to, a 1-bedroom or something like that. It's probably very, very difficult. And you have to think through this. So I was curious, in your previous career, do you find any of your skills transitioning into this? Because this takes some real skill, not just relating to people, but also the planning.
Well, planning, I've always been a planner
Okay.
and organized. That's just sort of in my DNA. In terms of dealing with people, I think 2 things. Public relations does help a lot.
Okay.
But I was also a volunteer dispute mediator for 6 years at the DC Superior Court. And you deal with a lot of volatile individuals. So learning how to bring calm to a room. I had this one client. He inherited his house from his parents. And he hated both of them. And his father was an architect and also a compulsive book buyer.
Okay.
So there were books all over the house. And he would walk around the house. This is an adult male saying, I hate these books. We need to get rid of these books. I'm like, okay, we will. Chill,
right.
We boxed them all up, 75 boxes.
Wow.
75. And I was like,
That's a lot of books.
crap, how am I going to do this? I called his father's alma mater. I called the architecture. His father was an architect. The architecture schools in this area, the Library of Congress, nothing. So I said, well, I will send an email to the top 25 architects and let them know about this treasure trove
of education.
of
Yeah.
education. It was
Right.
amazing. And that it's theirs for free.
Right.
All they have to do is come and get it.
Come and pick it up.
Yep. Well, this guy called me. He used to work for my client's father, the architect.
Oh,
and he
my
said, I'd love to have the books. So I said, you got a truck? But it worked.
It worked, yes.
So it's sort of like, with mediation, you have to think outside the box.
Right.
Here, I'm just like, who would take these? I
Yes.
shouldn't have promised him, but they're amazing.
They are amazing.
There
And
was-
people have a life and they have a story.
Right.
And they have connections. And if you can find that connection,
Right.
their things live on. I mean, they really do. And help somebody else.
I had the DAR Museum take some these brass grave markers that a client of mine had. I sent photos and I'm like, can you recognize these? Oh, yes. Can we have them? And I'm like, sure.
Yeah. See, and that's really, really going above and beyond.
But it's fun. It's
it is
fun to
fun.
think about what can I do that's not, the top 3 things.
Yes.
Because frequently the top 3 things don't work.
Right. That typically don't. All right. For what are those? So this is the new year, and people are always looking at change and what they're going to do different. Do you have any recommendations that you give people? Anyone that's like just sitting there like, what am I going to do in this move? Or I would love to declutter. I would love to get rid of this room. Is there any like motivational tips you can give? One or two things to our audience to tell them to do?
Start small.
Start small.
Use a drawer or a cabinet for one day. 2, reward yourself. If you've done that, you know, go out, get an ice cream cone or a root beer, whatever you like.
So you mean like take a drawer, like the junk drawer, if you will, and just say, okay, today I'm attacking this drawer. Right. And I'm gonna clean it out.
You're gonna clean it out. And if you haven't used items in a year or so, throw them out.
Okay.
Or, you know, have a weird box that contains donation items. But yeah, start small with clothes.
I was going to ask you, should that transfer to the bedroom as well?
With clothes, 2 years, out of here.
Okay. Meaning 2 years if you haven't worn it?
Right. If you haven't worn it, out of here.
And 2 years, just, that's
Same
the rule of
thing
thumb.
with like shoes, 2-3 years, if you haven't worn them. There is such a need in our community, and people don't see it. You know, there are refugees, there are homeless, there are food bags. Look at your pantry. You know, I mean, I look at my pantry probably every quarter, and if it's still not expired, but I'm not going to use it, off it goes.
Off it goes. So there's somewhere to take everything, just about.
Basically, it has to be no rips, no tears, no stains. You donate with dignity. But why have your own house cluttered?
Wow.
When you come home, you probably just want to sit and relax.
Right.
You know?
That was a beautiful thing. All right, well, thank you for that. That was awesome. Adele, you have been wonderful, and I love hearing those stories. We can relate to all those stories. I'm telling you, really could. And thank you so much. I know that you're helping a lot of people. And downsizing is very important to what you just ended with, which is your home should be a place to relax, a place you come home to, you're comfortable in, or your favorite room in your house should be the one. The rest of it could be crazy, but that one room, you can make that a little bit of a sanctuary for you. So I hope these tips have helped someone. I know you've helped me and inspired me. Put it in the trunk. Come and remember that because I struggle with it. So, but thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
And to our audience, it's that time again. If you have any questions about today's segment, please see the information scrolling below. You have been watching In the Cool of the Day and today's segment of People Connecting People. Thanks for watching. Until next time, bye-bye.